And well, in fact, tuning into today's video, we're going to have a look at the chance of some cold weather in the second half of the month. Sort of every day we've got little changes going on with these models, subtle changes. Some days it looks like we may get some cold weather in the second half of the month, other days it looks like it's not really going to happen. Today we've got a little bit more towards the colder side of things, so have a look at the charts in a moment. We'll also have a look at the very significant winds that are on the way tonight across northern parts of Scotland. Going to be really, really windy up in the north of Scotland tonight, maybe gusts up to 100 miles an hour across the very far north. Disruptive winds for many parts of Scotland, gale force winds for most places, but the worst of it in the very, very far north of the mainland. And then we'll also have a look at what's going on in the stratosphere. So a lot going on in today's video. We're going to start off with the situation in America as well. So loads going on. Before we go on with that, though, just say about the ads. There's links to articles on most pages at gasweapons.com. Have a browse through the widgets. Any articles that you're interested in, please click through and you'll be able to go off and read those articles. There's green keyword ads on some pages. If you right cursor over green keywords, they display ads. If you click through words, you go down to our website. You support gasweapons.com when you do ban them. It's yellow, contextual weather related ads on most pages as well, so have a look at what those are about and click through those. All these things are essentially paying for the website, allowing me to sit here and talk to you via Gas Weather. So thanks so much for getting involved and thanks for doing that. So let's start off with what's happening in the United States. We've got a very cold blast coming down into the north and the east of the states. Once again, all of these blue colours here going into America. Now this does have an impact on our weather. If you have a look at the jet stream, you can see why. Very, very strong jet stream coming out of northern America and southern Canada and blasting into the Atlantic Ocean. This is a very, very similar scenario to what we had last winter with all those horrendous storms and areas of low pressure battering the country pretty much from Christmas right through to the end of February. Of course, we've not had anything as bad as this, or as bad as last winter so far this winter, but I think we're probably coming up to the stormiest time of the winter so far, with this cold plunge in America again, with cold air running over the Atlantic Ocean, blowing up the jet stream and producing this very, very strong jet stream, which is going to drive areas of low pressure into the British Isles over the next day or two. So here's today's Arctic pressure chart, and of course got the jet stream blasting across the Atlantic, but the main thing is these purple colours up here over Greenland and coming down into Canada. That's very cold air running over the ocean, and what you get happening off these purple colours, you get little pieces of energy breaking off. So for instance, we've got one just here, little area of low pressure, doesn't look all that much right there, but that's going to give northern part of Scotland those very severe gales overnight. When you've got a polar vortex this deep around Greenland, very often you do get bits of energy breaking off and forming nasty little areas of low pressure. So let's see how that area of low pressure develops overnight. Here it comes as we go into midnight. Nasty little area of low pressure, 965 millibars to the northwest of Scotland. And it's always on the southern side of these areas of low pressure that you get the worst of the winds. So the track of this is taking the centre of the low pressure to the north of Scotland. It means that on the southern side coming in through Scotland, that's where we've got the worst of the winds. Very, very tight packed ice bars. Much of Scotland getting wind gusts up to 60-70 miles an hour tonight, but in the very far north and northeast of Scotland and into the Northern Isles as well, I think we will be looking at those gusts of wind going up to 90, maybe even 100 miles an hour in some places. It's going to be a very, very rough night up in the north, and generally a wild night across many parts of the country. The ice bars are tight back across all areas, so it will be windy, with gales possible around any sort of western and northern hill or coast, but the worst of it in the very far north of the country. Now, as we go through into Friday, we're going to keep it quite windy. It's going to turn very mild in the south, but got another little system there, again breaking off the main polar vortex, a little piece of energy out in the Atlantic, and that takes a very similar track as we go off into Friday night, Saturday morning. So there it is again to northwest of Scotland. Not quite as intense, we're not quite as deep, and generally saying a little bit further north. So it's probably north of the extreme north of Scotland, and the Northern Isles are going to get the severe gales on Friday night in Saturday morning. Although again, it's windy across all parts of the country, but the worst bit again probably to the very, very far north of the country. But I don't think the winds will reach quite the same level that they're going to tonight up in the far north. And then it's going to Saturday. That low pressure heads off into Norway, and we bring down this cooler northwesterly wind then, so it'll start off exceptionally mild in the south on Saturday morning, but turn cooler through the day, one of those days where the highest temperatures will be recorded first thing in the morning, and then they'll drop off through the day as this northwesterly wind brings that cooler air down. Now, we've been talking quite a bit about the stratospheric warming. It hasn't been a sudden stratospheric warming because it hasn't reached the required level. Nevertheless, the stratospheric warming has occurred, and this chart from the JMA shows you what's happened. This is from the Japanese Met Agency. Now, this black line here is the temperature in the stratosphere over the North Pole at 30 HPA. You can see how through the first few days of January that black line really shot up and went from around sort of minus 80 at 30 HPA to something close to minus 50 at 30 HPA. It's beginning to drop down a bit now, so the temperature is already starting to cool off. Now, compared to the stratospheric warming, the sudden stratospheric warming that occurred at the start of January 2013, it is less of a warming. That took us up to around this sort of level just here, minus 35 at 30 HPA. So we're what are we? We're nearly 15 to 20 degrees under, nearly 15 to 20 degrees under the warming that occurred in the start of January 2013. So it hasn't been as much of a warming. Nevertheless, this is pretty significant, and it's enough probably to have some impacts. I think it should produce some blocking somewhere over the North Pole. Whether it affects our part of the North Pole remains to be seen, and whether it's strong enough really to knock this very, very intense polar vortex that we've got this year on the head. I'm doubtful about that, but it could bring us into a cooler pattern, and that is certainly what the models are hinting at today. If we have a look at the latest city temperature forecast from website webweb.net from the CFS V2 model for Birmingham, we can see that again, just as it's been doing on many of these updates, it is forecasting quite a coldish spell to set up through the second half of January. So this is the 16th of January just here, and up to that point we're still seeing evidence of the zonal sine wave. Really, we're warm and we're cool at times, and warm and cool again. But we get to between the 16th and the 21st, this 21st just here, we get to that period and we see quite a significant drop in temperature taking place. This is 0 Celsius just here, and then we keep it cool really for most of the rest of the month. The temperature sort of hovers around 2 degrees, something like that. Go right to the very end of the month, actually go sub-zero for a day or two there on that chart, and then we go into February and it still stays pretty cold. Get through to around the 6th of February, we get a bit of a push-up, but then it goes quite cold again, and actually it stays quite cold through the first half of February. It's not till we get to, say, around Valentine's Day, 14th, that we see the temperatures picking up. Although, again, they do drop back a little bit again. So that's quite a coldish spell, really, setting up there. If you take out those few warmer days just there, during the first, say, the 5th, 6th, 7th, during the first week of February, that's a good month, really, of quite cold weather being shown just there by the CFS V2 model. That could be reflecting the stratospheric warming. As I say, it's probably not enough to produce a severe spell of wintry weather, but it may be enough to produce some quite cold conditions at times, and that's really what that is showing. Some quite significant frost there through January as well. This is -6 just here, and some nights are going down in Birmingham, going down close to that sort of level. So pretty cold spell really being seen on this morning's CFS V2 update from the website webweb.net. Do check out WeatherWeb from my links page. This is the CFS 500 millibar height anomaly for the coming month of January. It's quite westerly. We see those blue colours there tied towards Iceland, with the yellows down to the south. That's high pressure to the south, low pressure to the north, and bringing that westerly flow through during the coming month. But as we go through into the next month, into February, we're keeping it quite unsettled. We're keeping those blue colours across the country, but they're digging southwards through that period. So we start to set up something of a trough to the south. We've got this big ridge sitting up to the northeast, so the jet stream is going something like that. So we are coming into the cold side of the jet, and we're sort of seeing ourselves seeing a bit of a cut-off trough developing down to the south of the country, because this ridge of high pressure to the northeast is trying to force the winds into the east. So again, that could be indicative of that stratospheric warming, just producing a bit of blocking there up to the northeast of the country as we get through into February. All of that's very experimental and it is subject to change, but it's just the idea about there's something churning away, but as it has been for the last few days, that as we're going into the second half of the winter, it could be colder than the first half. This is the GFS ensemble for the next couple of weeks, so this is the shorter range cousin of the CFS model, and there's the big warm-up that's going to be taking place over the next few days. It's going to become very mild at the end of the week. Of course, this is the 30-year temperature average. This red line here becoming very mild for a time, then going colder into the weekend, and then we tick up a little bit for the start of next week. But overall, as we go through, I think the trend is pretty downwards as we're going through this. Not dramatically downwards, as I say, not a severe spell setting up, but certainly cooler or colder even than it has been through most of January so far. So yeah, I think as we get through the second half of the month, this 15th just here, there is evidence of a cooling trend taking place there. I have to emphasise we're talking cooler, not severe cold. Now, a very wet day in the southeast today, that's associated with this big rainfall spike just here. Then actually turns a little bit drier for a few days, but as we get through into next week, the rainfall spikes are coming back. And as that's coinciding with this dip in the temperature through next week and into the following week, some of these spikes could be just showing up perhaps a little bit of wintry potential. Here's today's GFS generic chart for the middle of next week, Wednesday the 14th. We're still more or less in the same pattern that we're in at the moment, although the purple colours are easing around Greenland, so the pressure and the coldness around Greenland is beginning to come up a little bit. But we're still more or less in the same pattern, westerly, low pressure to the north, high pressure to the south. So those low pressures next week could be quite significant, bringing severe gales across parts of the country. So Thursday the 15th, for instance, brings a severe gale into Scotland and Northern England. We'll have to keep an eye on that one. And as we go through into the end of next week, again staying unsettled, but the purple colours are coming up, and we're bringing cooler air in from the northwest really, as the jet stream, which is the black line here, the jet stream is easing and digging southwards with time. We go into Saturday the 17th, we're trying to pull the winds into the north, so we've got some really quite chilly air coming down now at that point from the north. Then we build a little bit of a ridge within cold air as we're going to Sunday the 18th, so that could be quite cold. That's day 10. GFS develops another quite deep storm as we go through into Monday, the 19th. That pushes through, and eventually we pull down again another cold northerly wind. So it's the idea that with time it's gradually getting colder as these low pressures push through, bring cooler air in on the backside, and each shot brings colder air than the first shot. So by the time we get through to the end of the 6 o'clock run of the GFS, we actually end up quite cold by the 22nd of January. We're in a northerly wind there, and even showing signs of a little bit of blocking up towards Greenland. The ECMWF for the middle of next week, again, we're in that westerly flow. As we go through the charts, we find again the jet stream digging southwards, these areas of low pressure coming through, pulling cooler air in with time, and we end up like this on Sunday the 18th in quite a cold northerly flow. We've got an area of low pressure to the south of the country there. If that did come off, we would have to think about wintry potential on the northern edge, but of course that's too far away for that kind of detail. But again, GFS and the ECM are seeing the same sort of thing really, which is that with time, we're keeping it unsettled, but with time these areas of low pressure just digging in a little bit further southwards each time they come through. And eventually, as they pass through, they pull cooler air in. Eventually, each shot of cooler air gets colder, if you see what I mean. So we end up quite cold, really, by the time we get through in towards, say, the last 10 days of the month. That's the idea that's there within models this way. It's not a severe spell of weather, I have to emphasise, but it does look as though we could be turning things cold. This could tie in with that stratospheric warning. So we've got to keep an eye on it. There could be wintry potential as we get through into the final couple of weeks, and particularly the last 10 days of the month. Between now and then, it's stormy weather to be concerned with. If you are concerned about tonight's stormy winds across the north of the country, do check out the severe weather warnings at the UK Met Office website. It will be disruptive weather up in the north of Scotland tonight. So if you're going to be travelling about, or you're at all concerned about the weather, do check out those weather warnings at the UK Met Office website. Very significant weather events for the north overnight tonight. That's all for now. We'll be looking at the Japanese model for the coming month. It's JMA Friday tomorrow. So that's all for now, and come back for that. That's all for now, and thanks for watching.